Welcome everyone to Critical Resonance. We are from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and this is some kind of podcast. I don't know what is that, but we are here to share everything that we love about music, and especially about heavy metal. And just because we're just getting started with this new chapter and this new era, we have someone very special with us today who's going to share the stage with us. He's Andy from Rivers of Nihil. They just released their new self-titled album, which is awesome. So welcome, Andy, and thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that very much, man. We're excited for everybody to hear it.
You know, I heard somewhere that Brody said that this is kind of a mix between everything that you've experienced so far, but with a more refreshed kind of perspective. What are your thoughts on this evolution, and what does naming the album after the band like signify to you at this point?
For me, I wanted to really preserve, be respectful to the legacy of the music that they made before, but also contribute musically. And I did do that. I think for those guys, they definitely, I heard Brody mention this the other day in an interview, but he said that he definitely spent some time looking back on old Rivers stuff and seeing what worked, what didn't work, things like that, and drawing from that. And I think that was definitely something that we tried to do, was distill down what makes Rivers great, and what makes Rivers great to the people who think that it's great. People hate Rivers too, which is whatever. But learning those lessons, and I had mentioned before in interviews that I think the purpose or the goal on this album was to have very concise arrangements, make the song writing very tight, very little fat and things like that. And I think we succeeded at that. As far as the self-titled moniker, I think that was sort of in the works for a while after the 4-album seasonal thing was done. And I think that with the way things went lineup wise, since I've joined the band, we've had a lot of lineup shifts and whatnot. Not a lot, but we've had a couple major ones. It kind of made sense with where the band is at from a musical and interpersonal perspective to self-title the album now. So we kind of reinforced the fact that we had already thought about doing that, if that makes sense.
Talking about arrangements, every album follows some kind of path in some way, but how did you manage to create the perfect balance between technicality and experimentation and creativity and cohesion and everything that we have on this new record?
I think technicality is not really something that we consider too much. I think if you really take stock and look at it, we're not the most technical band. Never really have been. Although some of the older Rivers stuff is pretty technical. Some of the stuff on Monarchy, I'm thankful I don't have to play live. I don't think the guitar riffs themselves are particularly crazy. And I think there's a lot going on vocally, and there's a lot going on with other instruments and whatnot. And that's probably why that is the case. But technicality is not really something that's at the forefront of what we're thinking about when we put songs together. In fact, and I brought this up in a few interviews now, a big consideration for us when we put songs together is how will this song sound when we play it live? Will it sound good in a room, or will a lot of the details get lost? And in fact, when you have super fast, super technical music, that's often what happens in a room, is a lot of the details get lost. And that's not to talk badly about bands that are super technical, super fast. I love that kind of stuff. But, if you take a slow, heavy riff and give things time to breathe and everything like that, a lot of times in the live scenario, that's the stuff that really hits people the hardest. So I think that's sort of a big consideration when we put songs together. And as I said before, the other one would be just the songs hopefully don't have any more than they need arrangement-wise. So yes, it might be a little dense, but the song structures themselves, it's nothing crazy.
Okay, I'll take that. And I have a very personal question right now because we need to talk about this. I know that there's a lot of shit happening when you're making an album in the studio, and there's a lot of crazy stuff happening, a lot of crazy riffs and crazy vocal lines and everything. Like, is it possible to play everything live perfectly?
Like I will say, like Brody, for example, he's kind of a machine. So if you come see him live, he makes very little mistakes. I make a lot more than him, I would say. I mean, the main riffs and stuff and solos on the album, we play all that, but there is like textural stuff that goes on in the background, maybe layers, synths, or guitar effects that we'll put on tracks. But yeah, all the riffs and solos and vocals and stuff, that's all we all do. We do all that ourselves. It's all natural.
I really want to talk about the guest musicians that we have on this record because there's a banjo playing, there's a cello playing, and all these guest musicians, like when you're making an album, you must provide enough space for everyone in the room so they can feel free to create and to add something to the record, which it hasn't been planned since the very beginning. And I mean, it's not always the best option, but this time it was. It was the perfect choice, and it sounds very spectacular. I have to say it. But what are your thoughts on these contributions?
Well, so in the case of the guest vocalists on the album, it's just we needed like a gang vocal, and so we brought a bunch of our idiot friends from Reading, Pennsylvania, in to do gang vocals for us, and it turned out cool. I mean, it was appropriate for that. But as far as guest vocalists, there's no one like actually singing on the record besides Jared, Biggs, and I. Um, as far as like the banjo and the cello and stuff, our friend, our merch guy and dear friend Stefan, he's an excellent banjo player. So he was hanging out in the studio, and we had some parts. Hey, a banjo would sound cool here. Why don't you play it? And then he goes and plays it, and it's very not thinking about it too much, just kind of what can we do to make specific things, more interesting, or just to add a little spice to it. The same goes for the cello. Our producer, one of our producers, Grant, is a very competent cello player, cellist, and the cello is a very beautiful and dramatic instrument, and there's specific parts on the album where we thought, oh, a cello would add to this melodically or dynamically or, yeah, dramatically, whatever. So it's very organic. Once we get into the studio, we think about that stuff. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but
It makes me happy to hear that there's enough space for everyone in the room, just like I said before, because we have Grant and Carson, and um, you know, I really want to ask you how do they complement the band's evolution?
we're all very used to working with them. And they're friends of ours. Um, they're not too pushy at all with any agenda that they might have when we're making an album. Particularly Carson. Carson works very well with Brody on the mixing and drum recording and stuff like that, and it's very dialed at this point. And Grant, you know, we Grant has perfect pitch. He has a very good ear for vocal arrangement and stuff. And between the three of us and Grant, we get a really good result vocally with harmonies and vocal layering and stuff like that. And we very much value his ear and his perspective and his opinions on that. Um, so it's very helpful. But we know that when we're going in there that we want Grant to kind of oversee us figuring this stuff out. He'll very much be like, well, that note should not happen until the next beat or whatever. Stuff like that you wouldn't think of, and you go, okay, that's cool. But Carson, they both work very well with us. There's no friction.
What kind of conceptual threads tie the album together, and what kind of themes were you most interested in exploring with this record?
Sure, I think this is I didn't write the lyrics on the album. Biggs wrote all the lyrics, and I think they're fantastic. And I have to obviously sing a lot of them, so I do pay attention to them, and I do extrapolate my own meaning from them. Um, and I think the theme of the album would be to try to cultivate light and happiness in your life. And how does one do that in a world that is like very uncertain and can be scary at times? I mean, ultimately, we live in a world where everyone and everything dies. So that in and of itself is scary. So how do you find meaning and positivity there? Because the alternative is to be miserable or to side with evil and darkness and stuff, and all that doesn't lead to a life very well spent, in from what I can understand, in Biggs's opinion, and definitely in my opinion. So that would be it, I think.
Do you feel some kind of connection with the lyrical content on this record?
I do. I think a lot of the lyrics have to do, so I can draw parallels. Like, I think a lot of the lyrics have to do with the fact that, Biggs got married and became a father and stuff, and I think that changes a person, hopefully. Um, and in that same amount of time, I got married and I'm getting older, and I think things shift for you, and you realize, people around you are getting older, people are dying, pets are dying. You have all these experiences that make you realize, like, time is moving. So if time is moving forward, then you should probably do some work to try to enjoy the time that you have. And that becomes, I think for me especially, that's become the most important thing. Is I want to live a good life with the time that I have, and I want to leave this place, metaphorically, I want to leave it better than I found it.
What are your thoughts on this touring life as a musician? Like, is it possible to combine it with your personal life in a healthy way?
I think anything is possible and it sounds very, reading Rainbow or Peter Pan, but it's true. I think anything is possible if you set your mind to it. And does that mean that it's not hard work? Does that mean that it doesn't take time? No. But, you know, can you balance your personal life with the life of a touring musician? Yeah, it's hard sometimes, and it's very hard on your partners and whatnot. But if you care, you can do anything.
Getting back to the album, like, there's a song that didn't make the final cut for this record, and it's called Hellbirds, which was the second single. What's the story behind this track, and why this track didn't make the final cut for this record again?
Sure. So Hellbirds, from my understanding, was a B-side from the work. So it was written with the material from the work, and it didn't really fit in, and it just wasn't finished either in time. So when I joined the band, they had that song completely done musically, and weren't really sure what we wanted to do with it. And then we got the Lorna Shore direct support tour in Europe at the end of 2023, I think, or 2024. 2024. The years all blend together for me, but and we decided that that would be a good song to finish up and put out as a single before that tour, because it's very heavy and very like caveman, and so we put that out. But it also, on top of all those things, it being a B-side for the work and being released specifically for that Lorna Shore tour, it also didn't fit the aesthetic of the new album. It just didn't fit. It didn't fit lyrically. Musically, it was a bit different as well. So it's just kind of something that I think will hang out where it is forever. But we play it live, and people love it, and I love playing it live. So, it's a cool song. Just didn't make the cut.
This record is something really cool, and I'm not saying this just because I have a camera in front of me, and I know it sounds very cliche, but there are songs that really stand out, uh, just like the logical end, which I think that it should have been like the first track on the record, or maybe the end of the record. I don't know, uh, but it's a pretty cool song. Like, so I really want to ask you, like, what was the most difficult track to compose, and which one uh, changed really like drastically from the early version to the final one?
Mm, I honestly don't think any of them were that terribly difficult to compose. We've talked in interviews about how this album was pretty easy to put together. Um, I think probably the most difficult part would have been when we originally started writing uh, Suborbital Blues. Some of the, like the intro to House of Light and the chorus to House of Light, we wrote to go with Suborbital Blues. When we sent it to Biggs, he didn't like that arrangement. So we then took uh, all the House of Light stuff out of Suborbital Blues, rewrote House of Light, and then or rewrote Suborbital Blues, and then those riffs became House of Light. Um, so, but I wouldn't say that was difficult. It's you just kind of you hear what your bandmates saying, and you go, okay, well, let's try something else. Um, I would say the one that was probably the most. So in a way, Suborbital Blues started way differently than it ended. But another one, Water in Time, when Brody started writing that, it was the same melodies and chord changes and stuff, but it was very different texturally. It was more mellow kind of, and that changed from the demo. But yeah, it was a pretty easy album to write. There wasn't much struggle, and the four of us, like, we don't really fight over stuff like that. We don't really we've written so much music over the years, all of us, and there's if you don't like an idea, just you'll have another one. So you don't have to get, crazy when someone doesn't like what you did or whatever.
Please tell me just a little secret. Like, are there any other songs that didn't make the final cut for this record?
Yes, there's one other one. And that we'll see what happens with that. It could be another Hellbird situation where it just gets released as a single at some point. Or it could end up on the next album. And we've also started writing new music for the next album too. We just constantly have ideas and stuff. Is there anything set in stone? No, not yet. Not yet.
You know, I read somewhere that Metal Injection praised this work for its philosophical content. How does Rivers of Nihil diverge from that foundation in terms of experimentation and all of that?
Well, I mean, lyrically, the introspective stuff and the concepts and everything, that's going to be Biggs. I think, again, it's tough for me to speak for him, but I can say that just experiencing your life, growing older, watching people be born, watching people die, watching things be born, things die, that changes you, or it should if you're paying attention. And I think that type of life experience dictates that, and it does that to us musically as well, because you know as you grow and change, your musical focuses, your musical aspirations, your musical preferences, they change. I still love the music that I loved when I was a kid, but maybe I crave other things now, where it's like at 38 years old, I don't want to listen to heavy metal all day. I still do listen to heavy metal. I love heavy metal, but it's not something and music's become a job for me. So I don't really listen to a ton of music for recreation because I don't have the time, and I spend so much time with a guitar in my hands that if I have spare time, maybe I just want to be quiet or listen to a podcast about bears or something.
And talking about a little bit of everything, and I love asking this question because there's always a very cool answer behind it. Like, do you have any guilty pleasure talking about music, of course?
I don't really have guilty pleasures because if I like it, I don't care. You know, I don't really have things that I guess there was one thing that I hid from everyone in my life for a long time that recently come to uh, tell everyone, and that's that I love the band Evergrey.
First of all, Evergrey, it's a very cool band, so there's no guilty pleasure at all. Uh, we all love Tom England. And secondly, talking about the making of the record, like, how does it work for you guys? Because like, do the lyrics come first and then the music comes into the magic circle, or is it the opposite?
It's the opposite, very much the opposite. It's always been that way for me too, even in bands that I've written the lyrics and stuff. The music always comes first because the music dictates what you're going to do, you know, how much space you have, what type of vocals, what, you know, and that, yeah, it's always the music first.
Is it just one person like writing everything and composing, or is it a team effort?
Well, lyrically, it's just Biggs. Musically, on this album, it was Brody and I.
Let's get back to the past just a little bit. How do you see yourself as a kid? How do you see your evolution and your identity in the foundations of everything that you've achieved so far?
Growing up is it can be tough at times. It can be it's beautiful at times. In the end, it's all beautiful. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of as a person is that um, I've met my wife. I've grown a lot as a man. I still, you know, everyone makes mistakes. I'm far from perfect, but I have my own life with my little family, my wife and my dogs, and you know, I've come a long way from being a nomad that, you know, really didn't view anywhere as home. And that I think is a lot of the psychology behind becoming a touring musician is it's a lot of people that really don't know where they belong. So it's easy to hit the road and just whatever happens, you know. And I think the thing I'm most proud of is the life that I've cultivated for myself and the values that I've cultivated as a result of falling in love and wanting to be a better man and friend and husband and whatever. You know, and then that has taught me that, you know, music, while being very important and very you know, like you said, it's a thing that when I was a little kid, I sat around with a guitar and I dreamed of going out and playing and being on tour and playing shows for people, and I still feel that way, and I'm thankful that I get to do it, and I know that I'm lucky. Um, but it's not the only thing. There's so much more. Like that's not my identity. It's a part of who I am, but it's not who I am. And I think realizing that has helped me a lot too. Um, yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Well, I've been thinking about your fan base, which has been growing up so fast, like in platforms like Spotify or Instagram. Like, how do you use these kind of platforms in order to communicate with your fan base and trying to like get in touch with your fans?
I think as far as interacting with the fans, I think the best way to do that would be at a live show. I think for me, the internet and like these interviews are very helpful, you know, because you get to, you know, we get to talk, you know, but the internet for me is I guess it's useful to promote yourself with content and whatever, but largely the internet, in my experience, exists for people to talk shit and be rude and, you know, just try to degrade other people. So it's tough for me to view that as anything useful, even though I know that it is good for promotion and whatever. I think the best way to interact with, my favorite way to interact with fans would be to meet them personally and, just have them thank me, thank them, and, maybe have a beer and have a nice interaction.
Do you have something in mind or prepare for the live shows?
Oh, I mean, like I said, a lot of the music was the music on this new album was composed thinking about the live situation. So it's very much just a matter of rehearsal. So we're going to get together, we're going to rehearse, then we're going to hit the road. This next U.S. tour, we'll be playing a good mixture of new songs, older stuff. We'll have a good light show. So I mean, it's going to be a good show. We look forward to doing it. We look forward to doing it, and that that'll be the case, all over the place. We're going to be all over the world this year. Hopefully, we can make it down to South America.
I really hope so. The thing is that there are a lot of promoters who are trying to bring new music here to South America. So who knows? Let's see what future holds. See you next time, and I really wish you all the best and all the success with this new record. See ya.